It's the only podcast that broadcasts 438 miles between each other. It is Tuesday, October the 23rd, and you're listening to the fifth quarter. Good morning, everybody. I am George Koff, alongside my co-host Desmond McLaughlin. Good morning, Desmond.
Good morning, George.
How's everything doing in Lubbock today?
Pretty good. So, it's definitely a little hotter than last week. Still a little chilly, but, it's getting a little hotter.
Yeah, it's rainy and miserable and cloudy, dreary. Just like kind of some of the college football we saw this weekend. Just it wasn't as good as last week. Last week we had those four teams in the top 10 just lose, and this week we kind of just had one.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
so
a big one.
a big one, yes, a big one. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But let's start off let's just start off like we usually do. Texas Tech was playing their homecoming game against Kansas
Mm-hmm.
and cruised to a big 48-16 victory. Desmond, what do you got for me?
George, I was at the game. It's definitely a good game, seeing all the families, seeing everybody, see the old friends come back in town. An expected win. We both said that they're going to win. It's going to be a blowout, and it was. In the beginning, it was definitely a slow start. 3-3 at the end of the first quarter. It's pretty even, to be honest. Like, I got a little worried there in the beginning, but I knew that we'd win, but I was a little worried, on edge. But they finished off strong, winning 48-16. Bowman came back, threw three touchdowns, 400 yards, 155 was to Wesley. But they got a pretty good game against Iowa State next week. As you said, Iowa State's one of those sleeper teams that you really can't judge too early. I was looking at their schedule, and every Big 12 game they've had has been within 10 points. That's against Oklahoma, Iowa, TCU, all lost, but within 10 points.
This is Iowa State.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Iowa State.
Wow. So they will compete in the Big
Hmm
12.
They compete. They are not getting blown out by these good teams.
No.
And they blew out West Virginia. You can't forget about that.
That's true. That is true. And I think
A team Texas Tech lost to.
yes, and that is something you definitely have to look at. Right now, that's their best win because West Virginia is ranked, and I don't think they have any other. Yeah, and their loss to Iowa is looking better and better as Iowa's getting better and better as well.
Yes.
So you have to look at Iowa State and say, maybe they're going to make it to a decent bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think this week Texas Tech is going to get the win.
Yes,
I know Ames is hard to play in, but I don't see why not. I don't see what there is telling me. I said that about West Virginia, and of course we were all wrong when we said West Virginia was going to go in and beat Texas Tech, or beat Iowa State and lose, and end up losing. But this week I see Texas Tech, even with their quarterback unknowns, that you can beat Iowa State with either of the quarterbacks, Bowman or Duffy,
Right.
and beat them big. But I think
Probably be Bowman.
yeah, okay. So but either way.
Yeah.
But I think because I would have said 14 if it's in Lubbock, but because it's Ames, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, home field advantage, 35-28, Red Raiders. But I think there will be a slow start. Iowa State will get a lead of some sort, and Cliff Kingsbury's going to have to calm the guys down, get them back in the motivation mentality, get them the win.
Yeah. I said 27-14.
That's not too not too
Yeah,
big,
low
not
scoring
too-
game.
Yeah, and I think the weather is going to be a factor for sure. I think it's supposed to be cold and rainy. I'm not sure though. I want to say cold and rainy because that's what it sounds like Iowa State is always, but anyway, as we move on, Texas A&M had their bye week, but through the bye week, they got better. In fact, moving up one spot in the AP poll.
Without even playing.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. So, they moved up to 16th now, which is their best ranking in 2 years, I believe, since they were number 9 and beat Tennessee here at home. They worked on the basics. Sternberger said in the press conference yesterday. He said that Jimbo made sure that they went back to the basics, went to the things that they were missing: tackling, catching, receiving, passing, just simple stuff like that that may have been overlooked or forgotten about in the first 8 weeks of the season. So trying to get back to that, to what works and the fundamentals of football, how you get back to winning and how you command the game. They go into Starkville this week. Hopefully they have gotten better on passing defense. I can't wait to see what we did over the bye week to help us do better there. And will physically, or Mississippi State will test the Aggies physically, but same thing. The Aggies will test Mississippi State physically, and I've heard Mississippi State and the Bulldogs may use 2 quarterbacks, which I'm a bit concerned about because that's always hard. You saw that against Clemson. We shut them down, but you don't know how. It's hard to prepare for 2 quarterbacks.
Right.
I see Aggies will run the ball, manhandle the time of possession, dominate an SEC game, but because it's home, again, A&M or Bulldogs will keep it close. 31-24 Ags.
Okay. That's 42-21.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say larger, but I just think right now, anytime you lose to LSU like that, 19-3, you always are going to want to bounce back afterwards.
Right.
And I just think that if Mississippi State might take a lead early, and A&M's going to have to
that's not a bad game considering that LSU is like one of the top 4 teams, in my opinion.
It's not a bad game, but if you saw the game itself, Mississippi State legitimately could not move the ball. Mm-hmm. They were trying punt. They were trying punt again, interception, or another punt. Like, they just could not move the ball after the first quarter. I mean, I think it was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, and after that, they were scoreless. They were held. They were held. They were shut out. So that says a lot about LSU's defense. It says a lot about LSU's just mentality. And I think it would definitely be interesting to see LSU-Bama matchup in a few weeks because both teams are really coming off. They're coming off of wins like that. Bama beating Tennessee big, and this big win, and both have a bye this week. It'll be interesting to see how that sets up what we're talking about next week, and talking about the first playoff rankings and everything that comes out, and what we should see in the first with the playoff rankings first on the line. I just think that A&M, they finally got healthy and we're returning a receiver and another defensive back. Rogers is coming back. He's the receiver that's coming back. So definitely looks for some improvement. And I think if we can get through Mississippi State, Auburn doesn't look like that big of a challenge anymore. I was scared. Now it really doesn't look like that big of a challenge. And I think we can truly, after the Mississippi State game, I think we can go 4-0.
Okay.
That would be with an upset to LSU.
Ooh.
Each week we get
special, George.
Hey, each week we get closer and closer to that game, and it's becoming more and more interesting because as A&M climbs up in the polls and LSU keeps winning, we may have a top 10 matchup that night.
Okay.
Don't be surprised if you see another night game at Kyle Field for that weekend, Thanksgiving Saturday.
Yeah, I might have to come down for that one.
I mean, it would be a good one. It'd be a really good one. Speaking of good ones, let's get to the AP Top 25 like we always do. And I think that just the elephant in the room right now is Ohio State's loss to Purdue. I mean, they were manhandled in every side of the ball. They just offensively, defensively, they just looked like a team that didn't care. They looked like that they thought, oh, we're just gonna roll into Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette and just go get the win. Like, they weren't gonna have to put effort or anything. And Purdue said, no, you can't just roll into our stadium like that. What do you say about that?
Well, George, I really haven't heard much from Ohio State this year as I have heard from the past. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was very surprised when I saw them in that top four. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't have been. I'm not saying like I called this. I'm just saying I'm very surprised because the last time I heard anything about them was when they beat Penn State by 1.
Right.
But like, I look at their schedule and they don't play anybody. Why are all these teams in the top four and they don't play anybody?
Because they're undefeated.
But anyone can go undefeated playing against Rutgers, Minnesota, Indiana, Tulane, Oregon State. Anyone could go undefeated playing against those teams.
I mean, good point. Good. I think you make a point that that everyone has been trying to make for the last 5 years or so. That since the playoff has happened, we've had instances where is a one-loss team better than an undefeated?
Yeah, because a one-loss team, but who loses to like a top 5 team, would be better than an undefeated team who's playing nobody.
Correct. And I mean, and that's what's going to be interesting when we see next Tuesday the first college football rankings, what the committee is saying. Do they really see that because Bama? I mean, Bama's really the only exception there.
Oh, Bama's on track to win the whole thing.
Oh, because they're winning the games so handedly. It doesn't matter who they play.
Exactly.
That's what they're expected. They're expected to get those wins huge. Whereas these other guys that are winning, but they maybe have closer wins, that's when you start to ask the questions. And that's when you have to start thinking, oh, this isn't what the team that I was thinking about. This is, and I think that's going to be something that's going to be interesting when we get to, say, later in the year, and we're discussing a top, we're discussing a one-loss LSU team and a one-loss Michigan team and a one-loss Texas team and a one-loss Georgia team, and saying who should deserve the last spot in the playoff.
One loss so far. Correct.
Now, I think that could all change with this Georgia-Florida game this week. That's essentially that's a playoff game right now, because the loser of that game is probably not going to win the SEC East. They're probably not going to get in the playoff. It would be their second loss.
Right.
You're basically, you win that game, and you still hold a chance in the SEC and in the playoff. You lose, your season is kind of, I don't want to say over, but your season doesn't really, you can't go to the national championship anymore. That's for sure.
And also, I just want to say, I know we've been giving a lot of stuff to Clemson this year for their schedule being weak, but they did beat NC State, the top 20 team, 41-7.
Oh, that was, I mean, and you heard last week, that was my upset pick.
Yeah.
And I thought that Clemson was going to I thought they were going to look bad. I thought they were going to continue, like, they weren't going to look as good. Trevor Lawrence was not going to, but you know what? Take that all back. Clemson fans, if you are a Clemson fan and you're listening for some reason, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't mean to upset the Clemson gods or whatever, but obviously, I mean, NC State coming in and only getting a touchdown, Clemson defense, wow, just wow. That's all I can say about that.
Which I think this win, since they're undefeated, like, puts in my mind that they're good enough to be in top 10, but I do not think that they're still good enough to be in top 4. That's one win. One win for a ranked team. Like, NC State, they're not like a good quality ranked team, you know? Not like a Michigan or Florida or Georgia, you know? That would be a big win. That would be like, wow, Clemson, wow, they deserve to be here.
You know what I would really like to see? I would really like to see some of these games. Like, I would love to see Michigan, Texas, and Michigan, Georgia. I'd love to see these games instead of just in a bowl setting. Like, let's put some conference games out, or non-conference games out here. Let's put games that are, like, exciting to watch. I don't want to go see a Georgia Middle Tennessee game or a Texas Tulsa. Like, I want to see the game that's going to be exciting. And you know what that would do? It would allow us to see who should be ranked over each other. Because if you have a quality win over a huge program that's traditionally speaking has been really good, there's no other questions you need to ask.
Right. So you got to factor in conferences too. If like two teams have the same record but they're different conferences, do you weigh one conference over the other?
Well, you have to.
Exactly.
And
And
that's
SEC
been
is by far one of the hardest ones right now.
correct. And that's when the Big 12 and the Pac 12 say, "Hey, what about us?" And they say, "Well, nobody likes you. Nobody cares about you because your teams are beating up on each other. So how are we expect you guys to get a team into the top 25?"
I
Or
don't know
top
if it's because
4?
I came with Tech this year, but the Big 12 has a lot of teams that have like some good talent. It could be good, you know.
Oh, I mean, they have talent. The only thing is, you get an offensive showdown, and that's great and all, but when you have to play defense and you cannot just rely on your offense, especially when you get to play some of these bigger teams in a playoff situation or a bowl game. I think the Big 12 went like 3-6 last year in bowl games, or no,
Mm.
or 3-5, something like that, something awful because they lost an offensive shootout or just they couldn't play defense or play against a very good defense. So it just shows you that these conferences, it's kind of, when we try to rank them, you try to rank them fairly, but then and you go to see them play. And that's why I think the Georgia-Oklahoma game in the Rose Bowl last year will forever be one of the best games in like recent memory. Strictly because of the way the offenses played, the way the defenses played, the way that they came up clutch when they had to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was an exciting game. And
You're right about the opposite showdown. Remember last year the Baker Mahomes game? They put up like a lot of points and a lot of yards.
oh
Remember like
yes,
the record? Yeah,
it was what, like 66 to 59
yeah, like
or something?
700 like yards passing for like yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, Mahomes had like 800 yards
Yeah,
of total offense. I
yeah,
think
that's
it
crazy.
broke a FBS record.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's unheard of in college football. But anyway, it will be interesting to see what the top 10 looks like next week when we see our first college football playoff rankings. And I guarantee you there'll be some changes between the AP poll and the college football playoff, because I really don't think they see UCF that big. Do they really see UCF as a top 10 team?
No,
Because I don't.
no.
I would rank Ohio State more than I would rank Ohio State over UCF.
Okay.
Moving ahead. Speaking of,
I was supposed to say my top four. I don't know what your top four is, but my top four in this order you might disagree, but without doubt, Alabama,
okay,
LSU, Texas, and Notre Dame.
in that order,
In that order.
I would go with Bama number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see an LSU Bama win, like an LSU win over Bama.
I'm saying right now. I'm saying like right now.
Oh, right now.
Right now.
I would say Bama 1, Notre Dame 2, Michigan 3, LSU 4.
Okay.
I think Michigan is better than LSU strictly because of that first game in the year against Notre Dame, and I think they've played their hearts out the rest of the way. LSU's played good, but Miami no longer ranked. Florida, who they lost to, is ranked high, but they just got manhandled in the swamp. And beating Georgia, that's great, but Georgia isn't looking good as good as they were last year. So I don't know. I just think it would be Bama 1, Notre Dame 2, Michigan 3.
I guess you're kind of right. I feel like Bama's the only good quality win right now. Like all the other teams have fallen off.
Yeah. So we'll see what the committee says, because somehow A&M was 8 or whatever, 7 or 8 in the last AP poll ranking before the rankings 2 years ago, the college football playoff rankings 2 years ago, and instead they were number 4, and then they ended up losing to Mississippi State that week. But that's a different story for another time, another day. Speaking of the World Series and speaking of playoffs, we now have our World Series matchup, which actually starts tonight, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox and the Dodgers.
Let's go, baby.
The Dodgers defeated the Brewers in 7 games in the NLCS, and the Red Sox got a surprising 5-game series win over the Astros.
Which is what I said.
And like you said, yes, like you said, I think the Red Sox will win in 5.
Damn right, baby.
They're the best team in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Dodgers get one in Boston, like they win Game 1 or Game 2, they will have a chance to force Game 6 and Game 7, strictly because they're at home. They're unbeatable, but the Red Sox are unbeatable on the road too. So, but if the Red Sox win both games at home, that's game set match for the Dodgers. They're toast.
Yeah, I don't want to mess up his name. Yasi Pug. How do you say his last name?
Yasiel Puig.
Yeah, that man's wild. He's good too. I like him.
The one with the tongue, right?
Yeah.
But yes, I think that will be interesting to watch. We'll next week, I believe, will be a potential Game 6 if we. Game 1 is today. Game 2 is tomorrow. We could have a World Series champion by the time we go back on the air next week. Mm-hmm. So, if we do, we'll break it down fairly quickly. Otherwise, we'll look ahead to a Game 6 and Game 7. But for everyone wondering, unfortunately today we do not have a guest picker. We will make up for that, and instead we will have a guest picker next week.
I got a text. Brett Bailey. George owes me some guap because he wasn't defeated.
Yeah, our picker, our friend Brett Bailey last week, yes, he got every single game correct, and that included the Washington State upset, and he got the margin of victories pretty close. So kudos to Brett. He's now leading. So if you want to top him try to top him, let us know. We're always looking for guests, and you just have to be free on Tuesday mornings. So let's get into it. But Desmond, first off, for our upset watch records, I want to preface with the fact of Desmond, you need to get your head in the game. You're risking risking not being able to be bowl eligible. You're 1-6.
I'm looking like the Browns out here.
Yeah, you're 1-6, but don't worry, I've fallen under 500 now. I am 3-4. So,
we actually had the same upset this week, but I changed mine because I don't want both of us to lose this week.
Okay. But speaking of those upsets, we'll get to those in a second, but we're just going to keep going down the line. Our 5 for 5-5. But actually this week, because there's no guest picker and we wanted to make it a little bit amount at the same time, we're doing 7 games instead of 5. So our first game is on Thursday night. Baylor takes on the 13th ranked Mountaineers in West Virginia. Baylor struggled. West Virginia is coming off that bye week, and they're coming off the bye week, and previous that the loss to Iowa State.
Right.
I think they will beat Baylor pretty big. 41-24 is what I have.
Yeah, I agree. I got 38-13. West Virginia's been playing really well this year. Will Greer is looking really nice. Only loss being Iowa State could have been a bad game. So I really don't see any competition from Baylor, who's been struggling all season. So I think they'll get themselves on a Big 12 win.
I do too, and I think that game, I don't understand why it was Thursday night to begin with, because unless Baylor was going to be good, which I can understand, they missed out on an opportunity for a different game. But That's a different story. Moving ahead, going this time to the West Coast on Saturday, Washington State wants to try to keep their excitement alive. They had that. I think they probably had the biggest weekend in football history for football in their school history last year. College game, they was there for the first time. Corso picked the Cougs. They beat Oregon. They stormed the field. They're now top 15. I mean, you can't get any better than that. Like, that's a good weekend at least in my book. And this week they go on the road to Northern California to face Stanford, and I think they will knock off Stanford. Stanford, I don't understand how they're ranked. I mean, I feel like they're only ranked because there's nobody else to put in the top 25. I mean, 24 and 25 this week is Stanford and Appalachian State. So Stanford gets knocked off. Washington State controls their destiny in the Pac-12 and remains the last hope for a playoff possibility, which still I don't think even if they win out.
No.
Even if
No.
they win out, no. But
No.
it's still fun to see Washington State, of all teams, just ball out. I got 31-28 Washington State. What about you?
I definitely agree. Stanford will be knocked out of the top 25. I think it will be a close game. I have it 24-21. I think it will come down on the wire, but I'm giving this one to 14 Washington State.
Yeah, I think it will be a good one, though. That will be one I'm definitely watching. Florida and Georgia, or Georgia, Florida, depending on which side you're on. If you're a Bulldog, if you're a Gator. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party, always played the last weekend of October in Jacksonville, Florida, in a neutral site. College game day is there for the first time since 2005. There will be lots of excitement. This is top 10, the only top 10 matchup of the week. Florida is 3-1 in the last 4 meetings between these two teams. They did win last year, I believe. Yeah, they won last year. And I think we will get a low-scoring game. Gators will win, but this is not an upset. Gators are just going to win. I think they're the better team. If Georgia were to win, even then, I wouldn't. Either way, it's not an upset. I think it would just be a very good game. I got 2013 UF.
Well, I'm going to go to the other side. I think Georgia will win this game, 31-21. I think it would definitely be a good game. I can see Florida winning. I'm not saying like that's crazy, but I just believe that Georgia has the upper hand in this game.
And I really think that, I think Florida is making all the right moves. They're, if you can beat LSU, that's a big win. And yes, Florida's loss is to Florida's loss, which right now I can't remember who's there.
Was it like Kentucky?
That's
No?
right. It was to Kentucky. That's right. Yeah, their loss is to Kentucky, but I still think they stay alive in the SEC and playoff races. So now back to Big Ten country. Iowa and Penn State. Penn State struggled as of late. This one's in Happy Valley in Pennsylvania. The Hawkeyes have been surprising. They've kind of just worked their way up into the polls, and I think this is the only ranked-on-ranked matchup in the Big Ten this week. And I think the Hawkeyes will surprise surprise Penn State, give them another home loss. Trace McSorley's gonna have to contemplate what he's doing right now because obviously he's not doing anything right. And 34-28 Iowa.
This is my upset.
Oh.
String ranking. Iowa beats Penn State 17-14, close game. But, I'm not been bad on my upsets, but feeling good about this one.
Yeah, I'm not calling this an upset strictly because they're so evenly matched. It's 18 versus 17 that I think even if Iowa loses, that would be an upset. If Iowa wins, I really don't see it as an upset. So I'm with you. I do think it'll be a good game. That will be one definitely to watch just because to see how Penn State bounces back from these 2 losses they've had. And now, because we were talking about upsets, we're talking about number 21 USF, South Florida Bulls. Go to Houston, take on the Cougs. This, Desmond, this is my upset watch. And I think the Cougars are one of the best unranked teams right now. Okay, their only loss, I believe they're a one-loss team. I think they're a one-loss team, yeah. Their only loss is to Texas Tech.
Yes, that's why I was also that's what I was saying. Houston, that originally was an upset because their only loss was Texas Tech. They put up, I know they don't play like crazy teams, but they still put up a lot of points every week.
Yeah, and yes, they're for me, Houston is the one team not in the Power 5 that could make a statement for being in the Big 12 or being like they could compete. And
Yeah, they put up 49 against Texas Tech.
Yeah, 35 because they lost 49-35.
My fault.
But they still They still put up 35 points. That's still a huge thing to put up. That's on Texas Tech, even though we said defenses really don't play in the Big 12. But it's still a huge thing to put up points against that big caliber of an opponent. So I've got Ed Oliver, the front five for Houston will just overwhelm South Florida. U of H has had their...
No. They put up 49. 63-49.
Oh. Okay. So, yes, 49 points. That's a huge margin there of points-wise, too.
Yeah.
So, I think U of H, they have had the Bulls' number. They've beaten them the last few years, whether it be home or away. 41-34, U of H.
I was going big here. Like I told you, this is my upset. But, I was going big here. 41-28, Houston.
So you have two upsets this week then?
Yeah, but keep the Iowa one. Let's be safe.
So you're calling the win, the outright win, but you don't want it to be your upset. Desmond, I don't think that's how that works.
Well, they're both an upset, but are we choosing one upset per week as like the one that like we're choosing, Because I'm pretty sure we've called like more than one upset a week.
That's true.
But I mean, if you want to put it on, I can get both of them right. Help my record out a little bit.
Desmond, I'm going to give you the you're going to get the Iowa as your upset. The Houston one is just going to be an outright win for you. So moving on, Purdue takes on Michigan State. Purdue's coming out of that big win, like we mentioned. And Michigan State is trying to avenge the loss they had to Michigan. I've got Purdue again. I think they just, something about them, all of a sudden, what I saw, I think they are going to, I think they beat Michigan State. And not just by like 1 or 2 points. I've got 10 points.
Okay, George. I mean, I see where you're coming from. I have Michigan State winning this one, 31-24. So kind of close, but good enough. But wow, Purdue, George, is this the new North Texas for you?
True. The Boilermakers, I'm jumping on their train. I got a few friends actually at Purdue, so I kind of have to root for Purdue because Michigan State just seems so, go Sparta. No, go the choo-choos trains. And this last one will surprise you too. Texas and Oklahoma State. I don't know why this is a primetime game. I mean, to be honest, could we have not gotten the Iowa-Penn State game on ABC? Or this is the Texas Oklahoma State is the ABC Saturday night primetime game. So I don't know. The last 2 weeks have been interesting. How we were talking about last week with Ohio State Purdue? We were like, why is this a primetime game?
Yeah, right.
I mean, we got our money's worth. I mean, That was a great game. But, sorry, Aggie fans. Texas gets a ginormous win. Huge win over Oklahoma State. 34-13.
Okay. Definitely. I had 42-17, but definitely a huge win for Texas.
Yeah.
No competition.
Yeah, Oklahoma State has not been good. I said that I said Cowboys are not good. They just
which makes the win that Texas Tech had against them less important.
Oh, it just says that you have a win now. It doesn't mean that it's a win over a top 20 opponent, 25.
Because I remember when they won, that was my only upset win.
Yeah, that's your only upset.
But I remember it was big. It was like, oh yeah, we beat them. They were all hyped up about it. Now it's eh.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing with me with my BYU upset, where I said they upset Wisconsin. BYU's been up and down. And so by calling that upset, I'm impressed I actually got it, because that's you don't get that every day. So I think I think we got some interesting picks here. We have I don't want to say upsets, but we just have a lot of picks that are maybe go one way or the other.
Right.
But I do want to say that my Mean Green, like I mentioned last week, I said they were going to lose. I thought they were going to win, but they lost
To
UAB.
wow.
Which by far is the best team in Conference USA. I mean, I think they have one loss, and that one loss is to some big school. So, yeah, UNT got manhandled in the fourth quarter. It was sad. They had a lead going in the fourth, and then I think they scored maybe a field goal or something. They still will get to a good bowl. I'm not saying they won't. And they face Rice this week, which would be a good way to bounce back. I'm going to say they will probably put up 50 points on Rice.
Wow.
I mean, Rice has been bad. Like, Rice has just been Rice. Like, I probably could eat Rice quicker and faster than the amount of points that they'd put up all season. You know, like in minutes wise. Like they probably put up, I don't know, 38 points a year, and I probably could eat a thing of rice in 30 minutes. So there's that. Sorry, Rice fans. I mean, you just have to admit your football team. You're a smart school, not a football school. Anything you want to say about your Sun Devils, Desmond? I know they've kind of been up and down.
George, Arizona State's, in my opinion, is exactly like Iowa State. Yes, they have a lot of losses, but they're all close. I mean, let me rant here for a second, George, because I think people are judging me for choosing Arizona State, but I am not backing down. They beat UTSA. Okay, yes, big. Next week, beat Michigan State. Okay. They lost to San Diego State by 7.
Okay.
Lost to 15 Washington by 7.
Oof.
Beat Oregon State big.
Okay.
Lost to Colorado by 7.
Okay.
Lost to 24 Stanford last week by 7. George, they're losing all their games by a touchdown. They are not getting blown out.
Hey, that's the difference between a great small school and a good small school. You can't just lose games by a touchdown. That's called not finishing.
You can't judge me, George, because one touchdown, one probably missed kick they had, missed field goal, whatever, could change the game. Their record would be so much better.
I mean, what is that? 4 losses by 1 touchdown?
Yes.
Who do they play?
Really?
Who do they play this week?
They play USC.
No, that's a more than a touchdown loss. Guaranteed.
You think so?
Oh, guaranteed. That's gonna be like a 2 touchdown, maybe a 17-point loss. I'm just saying, I let you jump off ship, and I don't know why you stuck with them if you knew they were just gonna keep losing games by a touchdown. So, all I'm saying is North Texas, Appalachian State, and maybe Utah to a certain degree. Those schools are going to be dominant. Watch out. Watch out for them. UAB too. UAB. I liked what I saw. I really think that when they come to A&M, they may give some trouble to A&M, quite honestly. I don't think they'll pull the upset off, and I hope not. But they might provide some heroics. But I think it'll be interesting to hear. So, we love hearing you guys tune in and listen to our podcast every week. Give us your feedback. We want to know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what we could do better. And if you want to be a guest too, just send us an email, the Q5podcast@gmail.com. Follow us on all our social media. We try to post at some point, but sometimes it doesn't work as well, or we forget. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Stay tuned. We may post our game or postpone our episode until after the college football playoff rankings come out, so we can discuss them, because I believe they come out on Tuesday evenings instead of Tuesday mornings. So stay tuned. Enjoy your Halloween and your weekend of October football. I'm George Koff, and for my counterpart in Lubbock, Desmond McLaughlin. So long. Goodbye. Adios. Go St. John 23rd Lions. I always have to throw in that. They're 7-1, and probably could go to 8-1 here. So go Lions, and as always, adios. Spin the fifth quarter.